My girlfriend said, "I'm going to Miami for a work conference. You can't come." I replied, "Have fun." Then I checked her company's website. There was no conference. What I recorded at her hotel got her fired before she even checked out. I've always been the kind of guy who trusts first and verifies later. Maybe that's naive for someone who works in cybersecurity, but when you're in love, logic tends to take a back seat. Her name was Emily. We met at a mutual friend's engagement party 3.5 years ago. She was loud, magnetic, the kind of person who could make a whole room turn toward her without trying. I was quieter, methodical, the IT guy in the corner who made sure the playlist actually worked. Somehow we clicked. For the first 2 years, things were easy. We moved in together, adopted a rescue cat, split bills, went to brunches, visited my parents once a month. Normal couple stuff. But then, her job started to change her. She was promoted to a senior event planner at her firm. Basically, she organized corporate retreats and brand conferences. At first, I was proud. She'd worked hard for that. But soon the work trips multiplied. Chicago, LA, Denver. I didn't mind. I even drove her to the airport most times. But around month 6 of her new role, I started to notice shifts. She became oddly protective of her phone. The kind of protective that makes you second guess every vibration. When she got calls, she'd leave the room. When I asked about her day, she'd shrug and say, "Nothing exciting, just clients." Still, I tried not to spiral. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Then, one Thursday night, she said it casually over dinner, spaghetti and red wine, like she was mentioning the weather. "So, there's this work conference next month in Miami. 3 days, maybe 4. Big client event. I'll have to fly out." I smiled. "Nice. Miami's great this time of year. Should I take some days off and come with?" She didn't even look up. "Oh, you can't. It's strictly work. Plus, you'd be bored out of your mind." That sentence hit wrong. Normally, her company encouraged partners to come. Networking, mixers, all that. I'd even gone with her to San Diego once. So I asked, "Which hotel are they putting you in?" She blinked, thought for a moment too long. The Palms. I think. Near the beach." She said it too easily, like a rehearsed line. I nodded slowly. "Cool. Sounds nice." She smiled with relief, like she'd expected me to push back. Later that night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop. Her company had a public website that listed all upcoming events. I scrolled through every scheduled conference for the quarter. Nothing in Miami. Not one. Maybe it was a private client gig, I thought. But when I checked her work's LinkedIn, there were no posts, no mentions, no team announcements. Nothing that lined up with the dates she'd given me. My stomach sank. The next morning, she was bright and affectionate again, texting from work about flight confirmations and client dinners. I replied like normal, but something had shifted in me. See, my job isn't glamorous. I mostly test systems for vulnerabilities, create security audits, patch networks. But I've spent years learning one thing. People leave trails. If you know where to look, lies have metadata. That weekend, while she showered, I synced her iPad to my iCloud, the same one she used for Netflix. I didn't dig through messages. I just wanted flight info. Sure enough, 2 days later, a ticket confirmation popped up, Fort Lauderdale International. Not Miami. She hadn't mentioned that. When she came out of the bathroom, towel on her head, I looked up from my laptop and smiled. "You all set for your trip?" "Almost," she said, grinning. "I'll pack tomorrow." I told her I'd miss her, kissed her forehead, and pretended everything was fine. Inside, I was running through scenarios like code. Maybe it's a side client. Maybe she's meeting someone. Maybe I'm insane. But when I remembered that her conference lined up with Valentine's weekend, yeah, that wasn't coincidence. The day before she left, she was humming around the apartment, trying on outfits. I noticed a bright red dress on the bed, the one she'd bought last month and said she was saving for something special. That dress wasn't for work. When she hugged me goodbye at the airport, she smelled like expensive perfume, not her usual daily scent. She smiled that soft, confident smile that used to make me melt. "I'll text when I land, okay?" "Sure," I said, and hugged her one last time. The moment her Uber pulled away, I felt my pulse slow. Not panic, not anger, just focus. Within an hour, I had booked my own one-way ticket to Fort Lauderdale. Departure, the next morning. I didn't tell anyone, not friends, not family. I didn't even take luggage. Just my laptop, my phone, and a small camera. That night, I barely slept. Every possibility spun through my mind. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe I'd looked like a fool. But deep down, that quiet, logical voice, the same one that kept me calm through server breaches, whispered the truth. You already know. When my flight touched down the next morning, I opened the tracking app on my phone. Her iPad pinged her location, Miami Beach, the Palms Hotel and Spa, right where she said she'd be. And yet, something told me I wasn't flying out there for nothing. The humidity hit me like a wall the second I stepped out of the airport. It was the kind of heat that sticks to your clothes and makes the air feel heavy, like it's pressing against your thoughts. I rented a car, a dull gray sedan, nothing noticeable. Miami was loud. Palm trees, pastel hotels, music spilling out of beach bars even before noon. But under all that, I felt strangely calm. It wasn't about catching her anymore. It was about knowing. About confirming the truth my mind already accepted but my heart refused to file away. I parked across from the Palms Hotel and Spa, the one she'd named so easily, so rehearsed. I stayed in the car, AC humming, and watched people walk in and out. Couples, business travelers, families dragging beach bags. Around noon, she appeared. She was wearing that red dress. And she wasn't alone. The man beside her looked mid-40s, maybe older, confident in that quiet, moneyed way. Tan skin, expensive watch, tailored polo shirt that screamed executive with secrets. They walked close, not touching, at first. Then, as they crossed the courtyard toward a restaurant patio, she leaned in and laughed, brushing his arm. That gesture, light, practiced, intimate, made my chest go hollow. I didn't move, didn't cry, didn't rage. Just watched. Years of training and logical observation took over. Note the time, 12:07 p.m. Note the place, La Maria Cafe, outdoor seating. Note the behavior, physical proximity, prolonged touch. They stayed for almost 2 hours. I filmed parts of it from my car using the camera's zoom lens. Not for revenge, but documentation. I wanted truth, and truth needs evidence. When they walked back inside, I waited 15 minutes, then went in myself. The lobby was pristine, marble floors, tropical plants, that faint ocean breeze smell hotels try to bottle. I approached the front desk and smiled at the young receptionist. Hey, I'm with the corporate event planning team. Just wanted to check which conference room we're in. She looked up, confused but polite. Conference room? Yeah, for the event hosted by Emily's company. She frowned, tapped her keyboard for a bit, then shook her head. I'm sorry, sir. There are no conferences booked under that company. The only events we have this weekend are a wedding and a medical seminar. Nothing corporate? No, sir. My phone was recording the whole exchange in my pocket. I thanked her and left. That evening, I booked a room in the same hotel under a different name. Small room, corner view, one floor below hers. I knew her room number. She'd sent it in a photo to her friend once, months ago, showing off a beach view. At 7:43 p.m., I saw her again, this time through the corridor window. She was walking toward the elevator with the same man. They were holding hands, laughing. Something about the way she looked at him made my stomach twist. Not just the cheating, but the affection. That casual, everyday affection that used to belong to me. I stepped back, heart thudding in my throat, and waited until they were gone. Around midnight, I walked to the bar terrace, camera tucked in my jacket. The two of them were there again, leaning close, whispering, his hand on her knee. It wasn't a fling, it was routine, familiar, practiced. I recorded them for 5 minutes, then stopped. Because it hit me, I didn't need more proof. I wasn't doing this to destroy her. I was doing it to let myself leave clean. No guessing. No, maybe I misread it. When they left the bar for her room, I stayed there, sipping my drink until the ice melted. I didn't follow. I just watched the elevator doors close behind them and felt nothing. That was the scariest part, the nothingness. The next morning, I checked out, left my keycard on the desk, and caught the earliest flight home. The recording, the photos, the time-stamped audio of the receptionist, all of it went into an encrypted folder. By the time Emily texted me, "Conference going great. Wish you were here, read hard." I was already back in our apartment, sitting in the dark. I stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Hope it's productive." And that was it. When she returned 2 days later, she was radiant. Tan, relaxed, smelling like sunscreen and champagne. She hugged me from behind, kissed my neck, said, "You would have loved the resort. The sunsets were unreal." I smiled faintly. "Maybe next time." She laughed. "Yeah, maybe." That night, when she fell asleep, I backed up the files to a hard drive and tucked it into my desk drawer. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, she'd never see it coming. Update 1. I didn't sleep the night she came back. She was next to me, breathing slow and steady, while I stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between the sound of her breaths. It was surreal, knowing someone so intimately, every movement, every scent, every laugh, and realizing none of it was real anymore. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee, checked her emails, told me her boss was thrilled with her work at the conference. I watched her, still, quiet, detached, like a security camera feeding a live stream I didn't want to see. She left for work at 8 a.m. sharp. By 8:30, I had my plan. I wasn't going to confront her, not in some shouting match where she could twist it into me being controlling or insecure. I'd learned long ago that emotions give liars the advantage. Facts take it away. So I compiled everything. A folder labeled Miami Evidence. Timestamped photos. A video of her and the man holding hands, kissing at the pool bar. The recorded conversation with the hotel receptionist confirming there was no conference. Screenshots of her flight to Fort Lauderdale, not Miami. Her texts about the work trip, all zipped into a single file. Then I created a burner email. I sent it, not to her, but to her company's HR department, her direct supervisor, and the corporate ethics board. Her company had one. She'd bragged about it once. I also CC'd the corporate email of the man she'd been with. Easy to find from his LinkedIn, which listed him as VP of Client Relations at a partner firm. Subject line, Employee Misconduct, Miami Event. No message, just attachments. Then I sat back. At 10:47 a.m., I saw the first read receipt. At 11:12, her supervisor replied to the anonymous address. "We are aware of the situation. Thank you for the evidence." At 1:03 p.m., Emily called me. Her voice was panicked, shaking. "Do you know what's happening? HR just called me in about Miami. They said there's been a complaint about misconduct." "What did you do?" I stayed quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Maybe talk to your VP friend. He might know more." Silence. Then, "You didn't. Tell me you didn't." "I didn't do anything that wasn't already true." She hung up. At 2:40, she texted, "They're saying I violated company policy. They're investigating. I could lose my job, Alex. Please, I'm begging you, let me fix this." I didn't answer. By 4 p.m., her company email was locked. By 5:30, her LinkedIn profile went inactive. And by 6 o'clock, I got a message from one of her coworkers, someone I'd met at their holiday party, saying, "Is Emily okay? Heard something about HR and that VP guy. Crazy day." I didn't respond. At 7:15 p.m., she came home, red-eyed, shaking. "You destroyed my life," she whispered. "No," I said, calm. "You did that yourself. I just turned on the lights." She dropped onto the couch, covering her face. "You don't understand. He was going to leave his wife. We were going to start a business together. It wasn't just an affair." I almost laughed. "Then why call it a conference?" She didn't answer. That night, she packed her things. There were no tears from me, no yelling, no begging. I just watched, silent, as she stuffed her clothes into a suitcase, the same one she'd used for Miami. Before she walked out, she stopped in the doorway. "You didn't have to ruin me, Alex. You could have just left." I met her eyes for the last time. "I did leave. You just hadn't noticed yet." She left, door closing softly behind her. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled. The apartment was still. The next morning, her boss called me. He said, "Thank you for sending what you did. We can't discuss details, but we've taken appropriate action." I didn't ask for details. I already knew what appropriate action meant. 2 days later, one of my coworkers, who happened to have a mutual contact at Emily's company, told me both she and the VP were fired. The VP's wife filed for divorce. Emily's Instagram went private. Her number stopped working a week later. I thought I'd feel vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I just felt empty, like I'd finally finished a puzzle that formed a picture I never wanted to see. I kept the hard drive with the files locked away, not as a trophy, as proof, for myself, that I hadn't imagined it, that it all really happened. A few weeks later, I saw her name pop up on a local freelance site, independent event planner. Different photo, same smile. I closed the tab because that chapter, finally, was over. Final update. It's been just over a year since that night, since the door closed behind Emily for the last time. If you'd told me then that I'd be writing this now from a quiet apartment overlooking the bay, coffee steaming beside me, heart finally still, I wouldn't have believed you. The first few months after everything fell apart were brutal. Not because I missed her, but because I missed who I thought she was. There's a difference, and it took me time to learn it. I kept replaying every moment, trying to find the first lie, the first sign. I realized it wasn't one big betrayal. It was 1,000 small ones I had chosen to excuse. When you love someone, you build an image of them in your mind, a softer, kinder version that blinds you to the cracks. When that image shatters, it feels like losing a person. But what you really lose is the illusion. After she left, I threw myself into work. I started freelancing more, then consulting full-time. My clients grew, my income doubled, but more importantly, my peace came back. There's something oddly liberating about knowing the worst has already happened, that there's no lie left to uncover. Then, in March, I got an email. The subject line just said, "I owe you an apology." It was from Emily. My chest tightened for a second, but curiosity won. I opened it. "Alex, I've spent months trying to hate you. I told everyone you ruined my life, but I know the truth now. I ruined my own. I lost my job, my reputation, and the only person who ever really saw me. I wanted to tell you that I understand now why you did what you did. You didn't destroy me. You exposed me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I finally get it." I stared at the message for a while. And then, without bitterness or anger, I typed one line. "I hope you learned something from it. Take care." That was it. No closure talk. No, maybe someday. Just the truth and an ending. Around that same time, I met someone, completely by accident. Her name's Claire. We met at a friend's barbecue when my phone fell into the grill. Long story. She laughed so hard, she almost cried. And somehow that laugh rewired something in me. We've been together 8 months now. She knows about Emily. Not every detail, but enough. When I told her the story one night, half expecting her to look at me differently, she just nodded and said, "You didn't hurt her. You held her accountable." That's rare. That line stayed with me. Sometimes people tell me I was cold for what I did, that I should have just walked away. Maybe they're right. But I've learned there's a difference between revenge and consequence. Revenge is emotional. It's about making someone hurt. Consequence is rational. It's about restoring balance. Emily created the damage. I just made sure she saw it. Now my life is quiet, peaceful. I cook on Sundays. I take photos of sunrises. I text my brother just to check in. I laugh more. And every time I board a plane, I remember that trip to Miami, the one that wasn't really hers. I remember the version of myself who thought love meant forgiveness without limits. And I thank him for finally learning that love, real love, starts with self-respect. If Emily ever reads this, and maybe she will, I'd tell her one thing. You taught me more than you broke me. And that, I think, is the truest kind of closure there is.